Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hi, my name is Moza Nafisca Ortega and I'm a student of Islamic 45 University majoring in English Literature. And here, at this moment, I will tell you about how to deliver a speech. There are 4 basic methods in delivery. They are manuscript speaking, memorized speaking, impromptu speaking, and extemporaneous speaking. Manuscript speaking is a way to deliver a speech by reading a prepared text. The advantage of these methods is you can choose words very carefully to deal with sensitive and critical issue. But the disadvantage is these methods is rarely done well enough to be interesting. There are tips to deliver a manuscript speaking. The first one is make sure to make eye contact with the audience. Don't be too focused on your text. The second is type a short and easy phrases speech. In this way, you can make an eye contact with your audience at the end of your sentence. The third one is use your index finger to keep your place when you look up. In this way, it will remind you where's the last place you read. Number 4. Speak at normal speed. If you speak too fast or too slow, your audience will not understand what are you saying. 5. Use varieties of voice rhythm and inflection to sound natural. Number 6. You can mark your manuscript to pause or emphasize certain words. And the last one is use natural movement and gestures. Memorized speaking. So what is memorized speaking? Memorized speaking is a way to deliver a speech by memorizing without taking notes. The advantage of this method is you can maximize your eye contact with your audience, but the disadvantage is you may forget parts of your speech and you cannot make on-spot adaptations and you may sound stiff or over-rehearsed. Third method is impromptu speaking. So what is impromptu speaking? Impromptu speaking is a way to deliver a speech without a preparation. The advantage of this method is you can speak informally and maintain an eye contact with your audience. But the disadvantage are you may lack organization and thorough research and may be unimpressive. So how to make a good impromptu speech? The first one, consider your audience. What they expect from you? What are your audience common characteristics and interests? And what do they know about the topics? And the second one, be brief. 1 to 3 minutes is a realistic time to frame an impromptu situation. And the last one is organize. And effective impromptu speakers organize their ideas into introduction, body, and conclusion. And the fourth method, as well as the last method, is extemporaneous speaking. So what is extemporaneous speaking? Extemporaneous speaking is a way to deliver a speech by speak from a written or memorized general outline, but you don't have the exact wording in front of you or in your memory. The advantage of this method is a well-organized speech delivered in interesting and vivid manner. The disadvantage is you could become repetitive and you may forget certain points and new thoughts may increase the line. In delivering a speech, there are non-verbal communication and verbal communication. So what is includes in non-verbal communication? The first one is eye contact. As I said before, eye contact is important. It makes your audience know that you want to talk with them and you are interested in them. And the second is gestures. With gestures, you can indicate a place, enumerate an item, and describe an object. There are some problems in gestures. The first one is parrot rest. It's like this. Parrot rest. You keep your hand in back. And you may look stiff if you standing like this. And the second one is broken wing. Broken wing is you're resting your hand in your hips. And the third one is arm clutch. You know, a pose like your arm is hurt badly. Fourth one is hand and croquettes. You know, this is the most often pose when you are feeling nervous. But if you're standing like this, your audience will feel that you make a better with them. Last one is fake lift clutch. This is the pose when you clasp your both hand in front of you, and this will distract your audience. Now we move to the function of gestures. So what is the function of gestures? The function of gestures is to repeating, contradicting, substituting, complementing, and regulating. Then the last one is emphasizing. And how to use gestures effectively? You have to be relaxed, natural, and be definite. The third nonverbal communication is movement. Your movement has to consistent, and then reduce physical barriers, and then establish immediacy. You can standing or moving closer to your listeners, and then signal transitions. If you want to begin a new idea, you have to give a signal to your audience. And then the fourth nonverbal communication is posture. Your face and your voice is showing the audience what are you feeling right now. That posture communicate the intensity of that emotion. And then facial expression, try to give a pleasant expression. And then the last is personal appearance. Verbal communication, your credibility as a speaker and your ability to communicate well is depend on your vocal delivery. A speaker has at least two vocal key obligations to the audience. The first one is speak to be understood. What is includes and speak to be understood? There are factors like volume, and then pronunciation, dialect, and articulation. And then the second vocal key obligations is speak with variety. Factors that are included in vocal variety is pitch, rate, and pauses. Next, let's move on to how on using a microphone. If you are inaudibly or using a microphone awkwardly, you will not have the desired effect on using microphone. Therefore, you have to know three kinds of microphones. Those are lavalier microphone, boom microphone, and stationary microphone. Lavalier microphone is a clip-on type that often used by news people and interviewees. Boom microphone is a microphone that used by movies makers. Stationary microphone is a microphone that often attached to a lectern, sitting on a desk, or standing on the floor. And you have to mark this. When you want to use stationary microphone, you need to take some other precautions. The first one is make sure your microphone is multidirectional and can pick up your voice even if you don't speak directly into it. The second is speak clearly and crisply. And then count or ask the audience whether they can hear you or not. And then the last one is continue to speak at normal volume. Here are some tips for rehearsing your speech. First one, finish drafting speech outline 2 days before the performance. Rehearse your speech aloud, then revise your speech as necessary. Prepare your speaking notes, then rehearse your speech standing up, and then present your speech to someone else. And if possible, you can record the audio or video of your rehearsals. Rehearse using all of your presentation aids, and then your final rehearsal should be recurrent as much as possible. The last is practice good delivery skills when you rehearse. This is how you should adapt your speech, depend on the diverse audience. Avoid ethnocentric mindset. Don't be too biased over a certain ethnic. Second one is use less dramatic style for high context. And then the third is monitor your level of immediacy with your audience. Fourth, monitor your expression. The last is use gestures with care. These are some tips to help you prepare for a successful performance. The first is get plenty of rest before you do your speech. And then the second is watch what you eat. And then acknowledge normal pre-speech jitters. Review the suggestions on how becoming a confident speaker. For example, you can use deep breathing techniques to help you relax. And then you have to be familiar with your introduction and conclusion. Is you have to arrive early for your speaking engagement. And check your equipment. Relax before you deliver your message. And the last is visualize success. Now let's move on to how responding to questions. During Q&A sessions, you will change your delivery of your method from extemporaneous speaking to impromptu speaking. So here are some tips to make your Q&A sessions less challenging. The first one is prepare, repeat, or rephrase the questions. And the third is stay on message. Then give a double-barreled talk. Ask the first questions to yourself. Then listen non-judgmentally. And neutralize hostile questions. When you don't know the answers, admit it. And then be brief. Then use organized signposts. And the last one is indicate that the Q&A period is ending. Let's move on how to selecting a presentation aids. So what is the value of presentation aid? A presentation aid is an object that reinforces your message visually so that your audience will understand the message better and then remember the point and focus and organize the information. For selecting a presentation aids, you have to know what types of presentation aids that can you use. The first one is three-dimensional presentational aids, and the second is two-dimensional presentational aids. And then there is computer-generated presentation aids. This is the most often presentation aid that people use. There is audio-visual presentation aids. And here are some tips to use computer-generated presentation aids effectively. The first one, keep sights and sound simple. The second is repeat elements to unify your presentation. Third is choose a font with a care. And then make informed decisions about using color. Last is allow plenty time to prepare your presentation. And how to select the right presentation aids. The first one, consider your audience. The second is estimate the size of your audience. The third is think of your speech objective. The fourth, evaluate your own skill and experience. How to prepare and use presentation aids. In using presentation aids, there are three guiding principles for an effective presentation. Those are, keep them easy to see. Make sure that your audience, all of your audience, see your presentation aids. And second is keep them simple. Your presentation aids should convey your information that you think is important, but your speech should provide the majority of your message. And the last, keep them safe. Don't use dangerous presentation aids. Here are some tips to use handouts. The first one, make sure that your handouts are really necessary. The second, if your listeners don't need handout during your presentation, you can save them at the end of your presentation. Tell your audience to keep the handout face down until you are ready to talk about the handout. And then control your listeners' attention. Then clearly number the handout pages, and then prepare image of each page in the handout. And the last is distribute a summary of the key ideas in the end of your talk. So that is the end of my presentation. Hope you enjoy it. Thanks for watching. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.